Let's be honest, Pokemon today feels like it's running on autopilot. The worlds are massive but empty. The Pokemon are detailed but dead behind the eyes. And the legendaries? They look like a blindfolded grandpa was told to draw a rad lizard from memory.
But there was a time, one fleeting moment in video game history when Pokemon really tried to say something. When it tried to grow up with us. And when it asked,
"Are we the baddies?"
And I think it's about time we take a look back at one of the all-time greats in this beloved franchise. The generation's so hype that I saved up my $5 a week from taking out the neighbor's trash cans, went straight to the casino, and put it all on. That's right, buckos. Today we're going to be taking a look at my, and hopefully your, favorite entry in the Pokemon franchise, Black and White. But this isn't a delightful trip down memory lane. Sure, it's going to be chock full of glaze, but this is an important look back. Because the Pokemon games we're subjected to today, they look different. They feel different. And I think it's important to revisit the last time we were this close to perfection and ask, what happened? This was a moment when everything in Pokemon just clicked. A time when they reached into your emotions and caressed your little soul. So in order to manipulate your attention span, I've broken this video down into a few digestible parts. Also, yes, this shirt is not from the correct region, but take a look at what happened to my other shirt that I actually wanted to wear. It's a little tight. Today we'll be going over the story, the Pokemon, the gameplay, the should it be remade, and lastly, the most bangable Pokemon tier list. Actually, I think I'm gonna keep that one for the Patreon, so just these. But these weren't my first Pokemon games. Not even close. So before we get much further, let's take a look back and dive right into my childhood and get a little. My Pokemon journey started out in Sapphire, but looking back, I was honestly way too young. I only got into it because my older friend was into it and I just followed him like a lemming, but I genuinely had no idea what the hell was going on. I remember I was so young, I was still learning how to spell. And when I got my starter Mudkip, I was so stoked I wanted to name him something badass. Or at least what my childhood brain thought would be badass. So I named him Dominator. Then, like a year later when I was older but still just as dumb, I realized I made a horrible mistake. I had irreversibly named my favorite friend and starter Denominator. Yeah, like the math term. I was an idiot. But then a few years later, when I was appropriately aged, Diamond and Pearl came out. Now I can already hear you saying, Moose, isn't this a video about Black and White? Fuck you talking about Diamond and Pearl for? Yeah, alright, you got me. I got distracted. But this is important Moose lore, so hold your horsies. Also, if I didn't stop here, I couldn't have made that stellar pun. So you're gonna get it, and you're gonna like it. Diamond and Pearl came out, and my friends and I were amped. We spent hours on Cerebi every day after school just researching Pokemon in the universe. We even got into the forums and trading, looking for shinies and stuff. Looking back, it was incredibly sus. It was basically our gateway into the digital black market. I was like 11 years old going onto strange forums and talking to grown men in coded language. All because I wanted a legit shiny Mew. But do I regret it? No. That era was the peak of my childhood. It was the foundation for a lot of friendships I still have today. So when the next generation of Pokemon games got announced, I started salivating. Black and White also came out at a time when I was transitioning from childhood whimsy and wonder to teenage angst and anxiety. So playing this game really hit home for me. Not only because it was a new Pokemon game for my dopamine receptors to go buck wild on, but mainly because of the. I'll be completely honest, I don't remember the story of Diamond and Pearl at all. I'm pretty sure there was some emo dude named Cyrus, and I definitely remember my wife Cynthia and her theme song. Terrifying. But besides that, it didn't really stick. But then we turned to Black and White. Vivid memories. Life-altering realizations about the world at large. It was the first time a Pokemon game really made me stop and think, wait, are Pokemon battles kind of fucked up? And all that immersion really started with the setting, Unova. It just feels good. It wasn't some ancient city or some crazy mythical forest. It's based on New York. And even though I'm from California, something about it felt close to home. Maybe it was the skyscrapers, or maybe it was the anxiety, or maybe it was the late-stage capitalism constantly eating at your soul, but it felt like it was the first time Pokemon was trying to show something real. Something more than just, bad guy wants world domination. This wasn't just a game about battling fun little monsters. This was a game about growing up. About realizing that the world might not be all sunshine and rainbows like you thought. Because from the moment that Team Plasma shows up, the entire vibe shifts. They're not just some goofy crime syndicate like Team Rocket who wants to
blow those whining women back to the Dark Ages right where they belong.
Yeah, okay.
They come out swinging with protests and these insane moral high grounds. They basically say, Pokemon are living beings, you beat them up, trap them in a ball, force them to fight each other, and you claim that you love them. And the worst part is that you don't have a comeback, because low-key they're kind of right. As a kid, I didn't know how to respond, and even as an adult, it still kind of makes me uncomfy to think about, but in a great way. This was the first Pokemon game that makes you think about the ethics of the universe. And all of those ethical questions that you have can be summed up in our favorite green-haired confused freak, Natural Harmonia Gropius. Yeah, that is N's real canonical name. You can look that, I'm not kidding at all. You can look that up. Thank Christ they scrapped that. Anyways, N is a 20-year-old man-child with a horrible past and a confusing future, but somehow he works perfectly as the main villain of the game. Maybe he's your rival or trauma dumper, or maybe
8 inches and thick.
Look, I don't know, he's a mess, but I fuck with him. He's the kind of character who seems weird at first, but slowly starts to transition into being the main drive and heart behind the story. He's not trying to beat you because he's competitive. He's trying to prove something. He's been raised to think that Pokemon should be free, and from his perspective, you're the villain. And once again, he's not entirely wrong. He was manipulated, sure, but his motivations are pure, and every time you battle him, it feels more like a conversation than a fight. I remember sitting there as a kid actually thinking about what he was saying and feeling bad for him. His whole life, he walked this path thinking that what he was doing was righteous. And that's where the game's main theme really comes in. Perspective. Because by the end, I didn't want to beat him. I wanted to help him. I wanted him to join me. But what I really wanted was for us to go out and beat the piss out of Getsis together. Because, oh boy, do we need to talk about Getsis, who is maybe N's dad? Maybe just some bro who stole a child and raised him in a forest? We never really get clarification, but I mean, statistically speaking, how many green-haired nerds are there running around in this world? So I don't know. Anyways, he's not Giovanni. He's not Cyrus. He doesn't want power himself, at least not directly. He wants to use N to convince the world to release their Pokemon, so he can rule quietly, unopposed. It's manipulative, it's abusive, it's like some cult shit, and it's kind of terrifying to think about. And it made me hate him in a way that no other Pokemon villain has ever managed. He felt real, not like a cartoon or some world-ending supervillain, just a guy who abducted a kid, twisted his worldview, and weaponized him. And when you finally beat him, you do save the world, but it feels more like you're freeing a friend, which again was mind-blowing to me as a kid. But since we're here, we need to talk about one of the big twists in the game. One of the moments of my childhood gaming that still sticks out to me. You get through the entire story, beat the Elite Four, and are right on your way to take on the champion, when suddenly N shows up. He then raises a castle up from the depths of the earth filled with celestial dragons and drags you into the wildest climax in Pokemon history. I'm telling you, when this first happened to me as a kid, I lost my goddamn mind. I literally spent hours combing every single inch of that castle, looking for every single bit of dialogue and lore that I could find. And then I found N's bedroom. Toys everywhere, spotless, brand new, and it hit me. This guy wasn't living a life. He was being controlled, raised like a doll, like a Pokemon. I remember saying out loud, oh damn, this guy's a weirdo, which secretly was my 12-year-old way of saying, oh shit, trauma really does exist. But it reframed the whole story. You and N aren't just rivals. You're on opposite ends of a moral war. You both want to become champion, but he wants to change the world. and you want to stop him. Not because he's evil, but because what he's saying is making a little bit too much sense. And when it's all over, he walks away quietly and realizes that the world might not have been the way that he imagined it. That shit stuck with me. You didn't win a battle, you changed his life. And speaking of changed lives, we gotta talk about Alder, my sweet baby boy Alder. As the champion of the region, he's the strongest around, but he doesn't train. He just wanders around Unova sad. Why? Well, because his very first starter Pokemon died from illness. I mean, what? That's so sad. Honestly, up until this point, I didn't even know that Pokemon could die. I thought we just got faked out every once in a while in the movies. But Alder is yet another reminder that grief exists even for the strongest people, and nobody is above dealing with pain. Again, this game has deep topics in it, because Black and White didn't just tell a better story, it told a smarter one, a more sophisticated story. It challenged the formula, it gave weight to your actions, and it made you feel something deeper than just, oh shit, I caught a biblically accurate angel. And honestly, I don't think Pokemon's topped that since. Okay, so I realized we just spent about an hour and a half talking about childhood trauma, cult manipulation, and the ethics of animal fighting. So let's get into the main meat of this game. The guys, the weirdos, the little dudes you catch in tall grass that eventually become your best friends. Black and White made the boldest choice in the franchise, being that there would be no returning Pokemon. No Pikachu, no Gyarados, none of these little dudes. 156 brand new guys to sink your teeth into. And honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons why this game smacked. I didn't have my comfort team to fall back on. I had to learn, I had to adapt, I had to create new lasting bonds with new Pokemon. And at the time, that's exactly what I wanted. But what's hilarious is that because Unova is based on New York, a lot of these Pokemon are America coded. For instance, we got an eagle whose name might as well have been Liberty McFreedomfucker, a gang of steelworkers, and a sentient garbage bag, which honestly might be the most accurate depiction of New York I've ever seen in fiction. All the new Pokemon are louder, brighter, and filled with a little bit of unhinged behavior. Just like America. But it works. These designs weren't trying to look like elegant forest creatures. They kind of look like things you'd find at a truck stop after popping one of those rhino pills. But it kind of rules. A lot of people online over the years have shit on this game's dex, but for me, it's still alive and well in my memory all these years later. They're simple, they're weird, and they all have personality. Sometimes I just want a leaf snake and a teddy bear with a sinus infection. That's it. The world, the Pokemon, the story, they all fit. And when a game has that kind of cohesion, you feel it. So, now that we've established just how dank Gen 5's Pokédex was, it's time for a very important segment. My infallible, totally correct, 0 notes Pokemon list. Hey, also, don't come at me for my pronunciation. I'm going based off of what I thought they were pronounced like when I was a child, and I think you should too. Let's break it down. Watchog. Basically, what if a crackhead got a 9 to 5 as a crossing guard? Pansage, Panseer, and Panpour. More like Monkey See, Monkey do not want to play with any of you. Siglif, a terrifying depiction of the Eye of God. I never caught this thing because I do not want any generational curses upon my family. Trubbish. Does not make sense as a Pokemon, but does make sense when you look at New York. I feel like we are about 3 days away from any of their garbage becoming sentient anyways, so it makes sense. Stunfisk. This is what you get when you stomp a fish to death. Tornadus, Thunderous, Landorus. These genie-looking MFs are essentially fanfic versions of Lakitu. Buns. Thankfully now though, we have arrived at the GOATs. Snivy, Servine, and Serperior. My favorite starter maybe ever. Also, Snivy is pure steez. There are actually entire meme communities based around the smug aura of this little bastard. Embor. The second coolest starter in this series, and also a jacked fire pig? Dope. Roggenrola, Boldore, and Gigalith. Why yes, Roggenrola does look like a geode butthole. Doesn't matter. These are my fellows, always on my team. Some might say I ride with the butthole boys. Also, comment below if you will trade with me so I can evolve mine. I'm not even kidding, please help me. Timber, Girder, and Conkeldurr. Construction workers and the backbone of Unova. Also, canonically, they taught humans how to make concrete, so that's pretty sweet. Darumaka and Darmanitan. First a fire pig and now a fire monkey that isn't a Panseer? Count me the fuck in. I always used to use these as my fire type in every team I made. They're just insanely powerful and awesome. Zorua and Zoroark. Cool design, still hits, But the fact that Zorua can pretend to be a child and actually make friends, that's not a children's game, that is a horror movie. 10 out of 10. Axu, Fracture, and Haxorus. The absolute coolest dragon designs Pokemon has ever done. Actually, back in the day, my friend and I who played together both loved dragon types and didn't want to copy each other, so we decided that we would each get one of the lines, and this was his. Dino, Zweilius, and Hydragion. Yeah, I fucked that up, but they are my go-to dragons. Yes, I was relegated them, but I absolutely love them. Their designs are amazing, and every time you evolve it, it gains a new head. That is peak Pokemon design. Except for the leveling design, there is nothing peak about that. Cubchoo, cutest dude in the decks, bar none. I just want to give him a tissue and a hug. Cobalion, my favorite of the deer guys. He just looks regal and like a true legendary. Also, steel and fighting, that is a badass combo. Kyurem. When it comes to auxiliary legendaries, this guy's gotta be one of the GOATs. Now, they're no Giratina. He will never be Giratina. No one will ever be Giratina, but that's okay. Reshiram. Since I only played Black as a kid, I never got to experience having Zekrom on my team. But Reshiram has the cooler cry, so fight me. Also, a dragon fire type just made sense to me. Overall, for a legendary, they have great presence and aura, which is kind of my main factor when judging whether that Pokemon generation is gonna be valid. But let me tell you, this game is very valid. Not only did it come with a buttload of brand new Pokemon and new graphics, but it also came with some astonishing and awesome new... Let's get this out of the way. Yes, Black and White is still a linear Pokemon by the numbers game. It didn't reinvent the wheel, but it did refine the shit out of it until it ran like a dream. Basically, it evolved from a Caterpie directly into a Rayquaza. I mean, we got a game that gave us the ability to reuse TMs. Life-changing. But at the time, I didn't know that they added that, so I still hoarded all of them. Plus, we got a completely redone XP system that was sorely needed. And it revolutionized the entire series going forward. But more importantly, it turned every Audino into a XP Pinata. I swear to God, every single time I saw a single shake in the grass, I would immediately turn into a heat-seeking missile. But when really looking back at this game, the two things that stand out to me the most are the aesthetics and the music. Every single pixel in this game felt like a lovely collection of soul and whimsy. Every Pokemon had character and was delivered with a little bit of sass on the side. The sprites had something that all of the current games and all of the current Pokemon are sorely missing. Life. This was peak Pokemon aesthetic. This was the exact moment when the series really nailed it. Not fully 3D, just this beautiful middle ground where sprite art reached its final form, and then, like all great art, was completely abandoned forever. But if we're talking about something that will never be abandoned from this game, it's the music. This is easily the most remixed, memed, TikTok soundtrack that has ever been created by Pokemon. And I really don't think I need to go much farther than just saying Driftvale City. No joke, when I went back to replay the game, I walked into Driftvale completely forgetting that this was the city. So when the song started playing, I set down my 100% legit Nintendo DS that definitely isn't my iPhone, and let that shit ride for about 10 minutes. And it's not just Driftvale. Every single city, every single route has its own unique theme that smacks. The songs weren't the background, they were the storytelling tools. They built the emotional core of the whole journey. And it made exploring Unova that much more rewarding and exciting. Because while Unova may be a giant circle with a tail on the end of it, it has the best flow of any region. Everything pushed you forward. Everything made you want to see more of its incredible setting. It's like the perfect representation of America and all of its diverse biomes. We have a highway. We have a rundown path under construction. And we have a capitalist nightmare. Perfect. It kind of feels like you asked a Japanese man to describe America after only showing him the movie Idiocracy. But there's still a sense of cohesion, and that cohesion is something that the new games have none of. Now, the music is mid, the characters look dull, and the biomes are as barren as my love life. So we now finally need to ask the question that this entire video has been leading up to. I say, yes! but with extreme conditions. Humans are creatures of habit, and Pokemon fans more so. We thrive off routine, we love repetition, and the only thing that gets our metaphorical brain wieners harder than a gameplay loop is raw nostalgia. So the remake basically justifies itself. But it better not be chibi. We already let Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl slide. But if you slap bobblehead models on my black and white, I will fly to Japan myself and start unplugging monitors. What this remake needs, nay, deserves, is upgraded 2D sprites. Not fake 3D, not Unity Asset Store knockoffs. I'm talking beautiful, expressive pixel art with modern flair. Double the pixels, Game Freak, I dare you! Because the second we moved to full 3D, something got lost. Back then, we only saw the real version of Pokemon through the anime or the movies. The games gave you a taste and then let your imagination run wild to fill in the blanks. And that made the world feel magical. Now, you get the full model from every angle, but it somehow feels like less. The newer games aren't ugly, for the most part, but they're just soulless. And Black and White was the epitome of soul. So if you're gonna remake it, you have to respect that. Because it's actually wild to me that the most successful franchise in the history of man is being developed so poorly. That's not a joke, by the way. Pokemon is the most successful franchise in the history of the world, and it's literally not even close. So how is it possible that the most popular and successful franchise in history has a team of devs who seemingly don't care? How do you have all this money, all this legacy, and still make your games feel like a group project that somebody forgot about? Black and White proved that Pokemon could be smart, stylish, even meaningful and deep. But today, it feels like Pokemon's just trying to hit a deadline and meet a quota. So, yeah, remake Black and White. This game wasn't just good for its time, it was lightning in a bottle. A perfect blend of bold design, smart storytelling, a goated soundtrack, and the weirdest little dudes that you'd ever trust with your own life. It made me think, it made me feel. It felt like the last time that Pokemon was trying to grow with us, not sell to us. And in a world of rushed releases and half-baked ideas, maybe that's why this still hits so hard. Because this wasn't just the last great Pokemon game. It was the last one that gave a shit. Hi, thanks for watching. I know this one was a little bit long, but I think that just goes to show how much I really love this game. You guys have been incredible with the support on the past 2 videos. Can't thank you enough, so make sure you like and subscribe this one as well. This shirt is so goddamn tight, it is crazy. But drop a comment down below on the next game you want me to cover, and until then, I'm gonna be right here in Driftvale, just vibing. Ooh.